The stars burned red through the broken windows of the command center. Captain Marcus Blake watched as another defense satellite exploded in the distance, its light fading like a dying star. He gripped the edge of the tactical display, his knuckles white with tension. Earth was losing. After 30 years of war, humanity was finally about to fall. "Sir, the eastern quadrant is gone," Lieutenant Sophie Miller said. Her voice remained steady, but Marcus could see the fear in her eyes. "We have maybe 2 hours before they break through our last line." Marcus nodded slowly. He had known this day would come. The Caliph Dominion had swept across the galaxy like a plague, destroying every human colony they found. Earth was the last world standing, and now even that was crumbling. The massive alien warships filled the sky, their weapons tearing through humanity's defenses like paper. Down on the surface, Commander Kyle Harris fought in the ruins of what used to be New York City. His soldiers fired desperately at the advancing Caliph troops. But for every alien that fell, 3 more took its place. The streets ran red with blood, both human and alien. Kyle knew they couldn't hold much longer. "Fall back to the subway entrance," Kyle shouted into his radio. "Protect the scientists at all costs." His soldiers retreated, dragging their wounded with them. The Caliph pursued, their terrible weapons cutting through buildings like they were made of sand. Kyle fired his last rocket, bringing down a piece of building onto the enemy forces. It bought them maybe 5 minutes. That would have to be enough. Deep underground, Dr. Nathan Gray ran through the corridors of a secret facility. His hands shook as he entered the final security codes. Project Lazarus. The name had seemed so hopeful when they started it centuries ago. Now it was humanity's last desperate gamble. "Doctor, we're reading massive energy signatures from the Caliph fleet," a young technician said. "I think they're preparing their planet killer weapon." Nathan's blood ran cold. The planet killer was a massive cannon that could crack a world in half. If the Caliph used it, nothing would survive. He moved faster, his fingers flying across the control panels. The ancient systems were responding, but so slowly. Too slowly. In orbit, Admiral Helen Porter stood on the bridge of her flagship. She was the commander of what remained of Earth's fleet. 12 ships. That was all humanity had left to defend their home world. Around her, thousands of Caliph vessels circled like sharks smelling blood. "Admiral, we're receiving evacuation requests from all the civilian transports," her communications officer reported. "They want to know if we can cover their escape." Helen closed her eyes for a moment. She thought of her grandchildren, somewhere on one of those transports. She thought of all the families, all the children who deserved a future. "Tell the civilian ships to scatter and run," she said quietly. "We'll buy them what time we can." Her officers looked at her, understanding what she had just ordered. They would stay and die so others might live. It was the only choice left. Marcus watched the civilian ships begin to flee into deep space. Some might make it. Some might find a place to hide, to survive, to remember what humanity had been. He hoped so. Then he turned to Sophie. "Set a collision course with that dreadnought," he said, pointing at the massive ship that held the planet killer weapon. "Maximum speed," Sophie stared at him. "Sir, that's suicide." "I know," Marcus said with a sad smile. "But it might buy Earth a few more hours. That's all we can give them now." Sophie's hands moved across her controls. Around them, the station began to shake as the engines fired at full power. The crew didn't question the order. They all knew this was the end. They strapped into their seats and aimed their home at the enemy's heart. The station struck the dreadnought like a hammer. The explosion lit up the sky, visible from Earth's surface. The planet killer weapon was destroyed, but so was humanity's last orbital defense. Marcus Blake never felt the impact. His last thought was hoping he had given Earth enough time. Kyle saw the explosion from the street level. He knew what it meant. He turned to his remaining soldiers, maybe 20 men and women who had fought beside him for years. "The facility is just ahead," he said. "We hold this position. No matter what, the Caliph came in a wave." Kyle and his soldiers stood firm, their weapons blazing. One by one they fell, but the enemy paid dearly for every meter of ground. Kyle was the last one standing when a Caliph blade pierced his chest. As he fell, he could see the facility entrance behind him. They had held long enough. The scientists would have their time. Admiral Porter's flagship shook under repeated hits. Half her crew was dead. The other ships in her fleet were gone, torn apart by the overwhelming enemy numbers. She stood tall on her bridge as flames began to spread through the corridors. "It's been an honor serving with you all," she said to her remaining crew. Then she gave her final order. All hands ramming speed. The flagship surged forward, crashing into 3 Kalith cruisers. The explosion was massive, taking out part of the enemy formation. Helen Porter went down with her ship, never surrendering, never yielding. Sophie's fighter spun out of control. She had escaped the station's destruction in a small craft, but it was badly damaged. She could see Earth below, could see the Kalith ships landing to claim their prize. She tried to pull up, but the controls wouldn't respond. The fighter hit the ground hard in what used to be a forest. Sophie crawled from the wreckage, her body broken. She could barely breathe. Blood filled her lungs. With her last strength, she activated her emergency beacon, hoping anyone would hear it. But there was no one left to answer. She was the last human soldier still fighting, and now she was dying. As her vision faded, Sophie thought about all they had lost. All the worlds, all the people, all the dreams of what humanity could have been. A tear ran down her cheek as her heart beat its last. In orbit, the Kalith High Commander Vex Thor smiled in victory. Earth was his. Humanity was extinct. He began composing his report to the Dominion, eager to claim his reward for conquering the stubborn human species. Deep beneath the surface, in the secret facility, Dr. Nathan Gray lay dying on the floor. A piece of shrapnel from a cave-in had caught him in the stomach. But his work was done. With bloody fingers, he reached up and pressed the final activation button. Ancient systems hummed to life all around him. Lights that hadn't glowed in 800 years began to shine. The sound of machinery filled the darkness. Nathan smiled even as the pain overwhelmed him. "Rise," he whispered with his last breath. "Rise and take back our world." Then Nathan Gray died, the last living human on Earth who knew the truth about Project Lazarus. In the darkness below, in chambers that stretched for miles, thousands of sealed pods began their wake-up sequence. Inside each pod, a human warrior from centuries past began to stir. Their time had come at last. The Kalith thought they had won. They thought humanity was finished. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Adam Stone opened his eyes to darkness. His body felt heavy, cold, like he had been sleeping for a very long time. Confusion filled his mind. Where was he? What had happened? The last thing he remembered was putting on a medical gown and lying down in some kind of pod. That was in 2043. He had volunteered for something important. Light flooded his vision as the pod door opened with a hiss. Adam tried to move, but his muscles wouldn't respond properly. Strong hands grabbed him, pulling him out of the pod and onto a cold metal floor. He could hear voices, people coughing and groaning all around him. "Easy, soldier," a calm voice said. It wasn't human. It was too smooth, too perfect. "Your body needs time to adjust. You've been asleep for 804 years. Adam's mind struggled to process those words. 800 years? That was impossible. But as his vision cleared, he saw hundreds of other pods opening around him. Men and women in military uniforms from his own time stumbled out, looking just as confused as he felt. "I am Sentinel," the voice continued. It came from speakers in the ceiling. "I am the artificial intelligence assigned to care for Project Lazarus. You were all volunteers chosen to be humanity's failsafe. You were our last hope. Now you are our only hope." A woman nearby managed to stand up. She had the look of a soldier, strong and alert despite the confusion. Her name tag read Miller, not Sophie Miller. This was Lisa Chen, a Special Forces operative from Adam's time. "What do you mean, last hope?" Lisa demanded. "Where are we? What's happening?" Screens on the walls flickered to life, showing images that made Adam's heart sink. Burning cities, massive alien warships in the sky, soldiers in strange uniforms fighting and dying. The images were from Earth, but nothing looked familiar. "Humanity has been at war with an alien species called the Kalith for 30 years, Sentinel explained. "Earth's colonies have all fallen. Yesterday our homeworld's defenses collapsed. All military forces have been eliminated. You are now Earth's only defenders." Silence fell over the chamber. Adam felt the weight of those words crushing down on him. Everyone he had ever known was dead. His family, his friends, his entire world was gone. Around him, other warriors were crying. Some were angry, some just stood in shock. "No," a man said, his voice shaking. "No, this can't be real. This is some kind of test, right? Some military exercise?" "I wish it were," Sentinel replied. "But the truth is absolute. You are the last human soldiers left. The Kalith believe they have won. They believe humanity is extinct. They are wrong. Adam forced himself to stand. His legs shook, but he stayed upright. He had been a Marine once, and Marines didn't give up. Even if everything was lost, even if the world had ended without him, he was still a soldier. What can we do? Adam asked. If their military is that advanced, how are we supposed to fight them? You have advantages they don't know about, Sentinel said. First, they believe you don't exist. Second, you carry experimental nanotechnology in your blood. It was new in your time, barely tested. But 800 years of evolution and stasis has changed it. The nanites have grown stronger, more capable. Another man stood up. His name tag identified him as Jack Morrison, a pilot from the old Air Force. What kind of capabilities are we talking about? Enhanced strength, speed, and reflexes, Sentinel listed. Accelerated healing. Direct neural interface with technology. Your bodies are no longer purely human. You are weapons designed for war. As Sentinel spoke, Adam noticed something strange. The aches in his body were fading fast. His muscles, which had been weak moments ago, now felt strong. He clenched his fist and was surprised by how powerful the simple gesture felt. We need to test these abilities, Lisa said. She had always been practical, Adam remembered. We need to understand what we can do. Training facilities are ready, Sentinel confirmed. But first, you must understand the full situation. The screens changed again, showing maps of Earth. Red zones covered most of the continents, marking Kalith occupation areas. Small blue dots appeared here and there, flickering weakly. These are human survivors, Sentinel explained. Small groups hiding in ruins and underground. Perhaps 1 million people total, scattered across the planet. The Kalith are hunting them for sport and slavery. Rage filled Adam's chest. Whatever humanity had become in his absence, they were still his people. The enemy was hunting them down like animals. That wouldn't stand. Not while he still drew breath. How many of us are there? Adam asked. How many warriors did you wake up? This facility holds 2,000, Sentinel said. There are 19 other facilities around the world. Total force of 40,000 soldiers from your era. 40,000 against an entire alien empire. The odds were terrible. But Adam had faced bad odds before. He looked around at the others, saw determination replacing shock on their faces. These were soldiers, real warriors who had volunteered to sleep for centuries just in case they were needed. We'll need weapons, Jack said, and we need to learn about their technology. Everything is prepared, Sentinel responded. Weapons from your era have been preserved and upgraded with modern technology. You will learn to use them quickly. The nanites in your body will help you adapt. Over the next hours, the warriors began their training. Adam picked up a rifle and was amazed by how natural it felt, even though the design was completely different from weapons in his time. His mind seemed to understand the technology instinctively. The nanites, he realized, they were helping his brain process information faster. Lisa practiced hand-to-hand combat with another soldier and discovered she could move with incredible speed. Her punches could dent metal walls. She laughed despite the situation, a fierce joy in finally understanding what they had become. Jack sat in a training simulator, learning to pilot aircraft that didn't even exist in his time. The neural interface let him control the craft with his thoughts. Within an hour, he was flying like he'd been born to it. A soldier named Rachel Morgan, who had been a combat medic in the old army, tested her healing abilities. She cut her hand deliberately and watched as the wound closed in seconds. She realized she could save lives that would have been lost in her time. Another warrior, Derek Cole, experimented with the neural interface. He discovered he could hack into computer systems just by touching them. Information flowed directly into his mind. He could become their spy, their scout in enemy territory. As night fell above ground, the Kalith celebrated their victory. They had no idea that beneath their feet, an ancient army was preparing to rise. Adam stood before the assembled warriors, 2,000 faces looking to him for leadership. He hadn't asked for this responsibility, but it had found him anyway. I know you're all scared, Adam said. I know this isn't the world we left behind. Everyone we loved is gone. Everything we knew is dust. But we're still here. We're still soldiers, and those aliens up there think they've won. He paused, letting his words sink in. Let's prove them wrong. The warriors cheered, their voices echoing through the underground chamber. They were humanity's ghosts, returned from the past to haunt the present. The Kalith had conquered Earth, but they hadn't faced humanity's fury yet. That was about to change. The tunnel door opened onto a world of ruins. Adam stepped out cautiously, his team of 20 warriors behind him. What had once been New York City was now a graveyard of broken buildings and shattered dreams. Alien vehicles moved through the streets, and in the distance he could see massive Kalith structures rising from the rubble. "Stay low and quiet," Adam whispered into his radio. The neural interface made communication easy, almost like thinking to each other. "We're ghosts. We strike and vanish." Lisa moved up beside him, her eyes scanning the terrain with professional precision. She had been a special forces operative, and those instincts were still sharp. She pointed to a building where several Kalith soldiers had set up a checkpoint. 6 targets, light weapons," she said softly. "We can take them," Adam nodded. This would be their first real fight, their first chance to test themselves against the enemy. His heart pounded, but his hands were steady. The nanites in his blood kept him calm and focused. The team split up, moving through the shadows like water flowing around rocks. The Kalith never knew what hit them. Adam's team struck fast and brutal, their enhanced strength making the fight one-sided. Within 30 seconds, all 6 aliens were dead and the humans had vanished back into the ruins. "Command, this is Ghost Team 1, Adam reported. "First target eliminated. No casualties." Miles away, Derek Cole worked on a very different mission. He had infiltrated a Kalith command post by crawling through old sewer systems. Now he crouched in a maintenance shaft, his hand pressed against an alien computer terminal. Information flowed into his mind through the neural interface, almost too fast to process. Troop movements, supply routes, communication frequencies, everything the aliens thought was secure. Derek downloaded it all, his nanite-enhanced brain storing every detail. The Kalith had no idea that their entire network was being emptied by a human from 800 years in the past. In what used to be the subway system, Rachel Morgan found something unexpected. Humans. Real survivors. Not just scattered individuals, but an entire community. Maybe 300 people living in the darkness, hiding from the aliens above. An elderly woman approached Rachel carefully, a rusty pipe held like a weapon. The woman had gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much suffering. "Who are you?" the woman asked. Her name was Margaret, and she had been fighting to keep her people alive for years. "I'm a soldier," Rachel said gently, "part of an old military project." "We're here to help." Margaret stared at her, hope and disbelief fighting on her face. "There are no more soldiers. They all died months ago. We watched them fall." "We're different," Rachel explained. "We've been asleep for a long time, but we're awake now and we're going to fight." Word spread quickly through the survivor community. Soldiers had come. Real soldiers with weapons and training and, most importantly, hope. Children who had never known peace looked at Rachel with wide eyes. She promised them something they had never had before. A future. Jack Morrison stood in an underground hangar, staring at what used to be a Kalith fighter craft. It had crashed years ago and been hidden by human survivors. Now Jack was going to make it fly again. "This design is strange but not impossible," Jack muttered, his hands moving over the alien controls. His neural interface helped him understand the technology, translating alien engineering into concepts his mind could grasp. "Give me 2 days and I'll have it operational." Above ground, the Kalith were starting to worry. Commander Zarkul reviewed reports with growing concern. 23 patrols had vanished in the last week. Supply convoys were being destroyed. Weapons depots were exploding. Something was hunting his forces. "It's impossible," his second officer insisted. All human military forces were confirmed eliminated. "These must be scattered survivors, nothing more." "Scattered survivors don't conduct coordinated military operations," Zarkul snapped. "Something else is happening here." He reported his concerns to High Commander Vexthor, who dismissed them immediately. Vexthor was arrogant and cruel, convinced of his own superiority. He refused to believe that humans could pose any real threat. "You're jumping at shadows," Vexthor sneered. "Hunt down these survivors and be done with it." "I won't have my victory questioned by cowards." Zarkul ground his teeth in frustration but followed orders. He organized a massive sweep of the city, bringing in hundreds of troops to flush out the enemy. It was exactly the wrong move. Adam watched the Kalith forces deploy and smiled grimly. The enemy was concentrating their troops, making them predictable. Sentinel had activated more facilities around the world now. Thousands of warriors were waking up every day. It was time to show the aliens what they were really facing. "All teams, this is Ghost Leader," Adam said into the neural network that connected all the awakened warriors. The enemy is giving us a perfect target. Let's hit them hard. The battle for New York began at dawn. The Caliph expected to hunt down frightened survivors. Instead, they walked into a coordinated ambush. Warriors attacked from rooftops, from sewers, from buildings that seemed empty. They used the ruins as cover, striking and vanishing before the enemy could respond. Lisa led a team that destroyed 3 armored vehicles with stolen Caliph explosives. Derek used his hacking abilities to turn the enemy's own automated defenses against them. Rachel set up field hospitals to treat wounded warriors, her enhanced medical knowledge saving lives that would have been lost. Jack finished repairing the alien fighter just in time to join the battle. He took to the sky and attacked Caliph supply ships, his piloting skills combined with alien technology, making him nearly impossible to hit. He laughed wildly as he flew, feeling truly alive for the first time since waking up. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, over 200 Caliph soldiers were dead and the survivors were retreating in panic. The human warriors had lost only 12 people, and even those were being recovered by Rachel's medical teams. Zarkul stared at the battlefield in shock. This wasn't possible. These weren't scattered survivors fighting with primitive weapons. These were trained soldiers using advanced tactics and technology. Where had they come from? For the first time, fear crept into Zarkul's mind. He sent an urgent message to Vexthor, demanding reinforcements. Something terrible was happening on Earth, and if they didn't respond properly, they might lose everything. Meanwhile, in facilities around the world, more warriors continued to wake. In South America, in Africa, in Asia, and Europe, the sleeping soldiers opened their eyes and prepared to fight. Sentinel coordinated them all, building a global network of resistance. Adam stood on top of a ruined building looking out over the city. Smoke rose from a dozen Caliph positions they had destroyed. In the distance, he could see alien ships retreating to safer positions. "We hurt them today," Lisa said, coming to stand beside him. "But they'll come back stronger." "Let them come," Adam replied. "Every day we fight, more of our people wake up. Every day we survive, we get stronger. The Caliph think they've conquered Earth. They're about to learn they only conquered the surface." Below them, human survivors emerged from hiding for the first time in months. Children played in the streets guarded by warriors. Margaret and her people looked up at Adam and Lisa with something they hadn't felt in years: hope. The war was far from over. The Caliph had reinforcements coming, massive fleets that could overwhelm Earth. But they no longer faced a defeated species. They faced warriors who had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. The council chamber deep beneath Earth's surface held representatives from every awakened facility. Adam stood before a holographic map showing the entire planet, red zones marking enemy positions and blue zones showing human strongholds. The blue was growing every day, but it still wasn't enough. "We have 2 weeks, Sentinel announced, its voice echoing through the chamber. "Our sensors have detected a massive Caliph reinforcement fleet entering the solar system. 300 warships carrying an army 10 times larger than current occupation forces." Silence fell over the assembled warriors. They had been winning their small battles, but this was something else entirely. This was an invasion fleet that could sterilize the planet. "We can't fight that many ships," Jack said quietly. "Not with what we have." "Then we build more," Adam replied firmly. "Sentinel, show us everything. Every weapon, every ship, every resource Project Lazarus prepared." The hologram changed, revealing hidden facilities across Earth and beyond. Underground factories that could produce weapons and equipment. Mothballed warships hidden in massive silos. A secret shipyard on the moon that had been waiting for centuries. "This is incredible," Lisa breathed. "Why didn't we use these before?" "They weren't ready," Sentinel explained. "The ships are only partially completed. The factories need time to restart. We have resources, but we need time to activate them. Time we don't have." "Then we make time," Adam said. "We split our forces. Some teams continue hitting the Caliph on the ground, keeping them distracted. Other teams go to these facilities and get them operational. We have 2 weeks to build an army from scratch." Victoria Hayes, a former Navy captain who had woken up just days ago, stepped forward. "I'll take a team to the naval yards. If there are ships down there, I'll get them floating." "I'll go to the moon," Paul Bennett volunteered. He had been an aerospace commander in the old world. "That shipyard needs someone who understands space warfare." Adam assigned teams rapidly. Warriors who had been sleeping for 8 centuries, suddenly found themselves responsible for activating technology that was ancient by current standards, but still far advanced from what they had known. It was a desperate gamble, but it was the only chance they had. Victoria's team found the underground naval base on the western coast. Massive doors that hadn't opened in 200 years groaned as they unlocked. Inside, preserved in perfect condition, was an aircraft carrier from the 21st century. But it had been modified, upgraded with technology from the future. The USS Vengeance, Victoria whispered, reading the name on the hull. She felt tears in her eyes. This had been her ship back in the old days. She had commanded her on her final voyage before volunteering for Project Lazarus. "Can we get her sailing?" one of her team asked. Victoria wiped her eyes and nodded. "Get the reactors online. Check all systems. We're taking her out in 3 days." On the moon, Paul and his team entered the hidden shipyard through airlocks that had been sealed for centuries. Inside, they found dozens of partially completed warships floating in the vacuum. The ships were strange designs mixing old human engineering with captured alien technology. "These are hybrids," Paul realized. "They took our designs and improved them with enemy technology they must have captured during the early war." His neural interface connected with the shipyard's systems, and he began to understand the construction process. The ships were about 70% complete. With the right crews and enough time, they could finish them. "We need every engineer, every pilot, everyone who knows anything about spacecraft," Paul ordered. "Get them up here now. We have 12 days to finish these ships." Back on Earth, the warriors continued their harassment campaign. Derek had become a ghost in the Calith networks, feeding false information and sowing confusion. He discovered something interesting in his hacking. Not all Calith supported the war. There was an officer named Talrix who had filed several reports questioning the invasion's morality. His messages had been suppressed by Vexthor, but Derek found them in archived files. It gave him an idea. "What if we could turn some of them against each other?" Derek suggested to Adam. "Create a split in their forces?" "Psychological warfare," Adam mused. "Can you do it?" "I can broadcast Vexthor's worst orders to the entire Calith fleet," Derek said. "Show them what kind of monster leads them. Some might not care, but others might question everything." Meanwhile, Lisa led a massive operation to liberate a Calith labor camp where 5,000 human prisoners were being held. The battle was fierce and brutal, but the warriors' enhanced abilities made them superior fighters even against heavily armed enemies. When the prisoners were freed, many were too weak to walk. Rachel's medical teams worked around the clock, using their nanite-enhanced abilities to heal injuries that would have been fatal. The grateful survivors joined the resistance immediately, swelling human numbers. Jack had reverse-engineered enough Calith technology to create effective countermeasures. He developed jamming systems that could blind enemy sensors and shield generators that could protect human positions from orbital bombardment. Every piece of stolen technology became a weapon in human hands. The Calith, realizing they were losing control, launched a desperate offensive. Commander Zarkul personally led an assault on London, where a large concentration of awakened warriors had established a stronghold. He brought 5,000 troops in heavy armor, determined to crush the resistance once and for all. The Battle of London lasted for 2 days. Warriors fought from building to building, using every advantage they had. Their enhanced speed and strength let them move in ways the Calith couldn't predict. Their neural networks let them coordinate perfectly, acting as one unified force. Adam fought on the front lines, his rifle cutting down enemies with precision. Beside him, Lisa moved like a ghost, her blade ending lives before the aliens even knew she was there. Above, Jack flew captured Calith fighters, providing air support and destroying enemy armor. The battle was costly. Hundreds of warriors fell, and even Rachel's medical teams couldn't save everyone. But they held the line. When Zarkul finally ordered a retreat, his forces had been cut in half and his confidence was shattered. Vexthor, watching from orbit, finally understood the truth. These weren't scattered survivors. This was an army, a real military force that was winning. He sent urgent messages to the incoming reinforcement fleet, demanding they hurry. On the moon, Paul stood on the observation deck watching the final ship being completed. The Freedom's Dawn, they had named her. She was beautiful, a sleek vessel that combined human ingenuity with alien technology. Behind her, 46 more ships waited, all nearly ready for combat. "Will it be enough?" one of his officers asked. Paul thought about the 300 enemy ships coming their way. 47 human vessels against 300 Kalith warships. The math was brutal. But he thought about the warriors fighting on Earth, about the survivors who had never given up, about everyone who was counting on them. It has to be, Paul said simply. Victoria's carrier group sailed into the Pacific, engaging Kalith naval forces and proving that human ships could compete. Her crew was a mix of awakened warriors and survivors, working together with the coordination that only the neural interface could provide. Adam received a final message from Sentinel. All facilities were now active. All warriors were awake, all resources were mobilized. 40,000 ancient soldiers, supported by 1 million survivors armed with a mix of preserved and improvised technology. It wasn't much compared to a galactic empire, but it was everything humanity had left. The enemy fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. Sensors detected them immediately. 300 massive warships carrying enough firepower to burn Earth's surface to glass. Adam looked at the countdown timer. 36 hours until the enemy reached Earth orbit. 36 hours to prepare for the final battle. He activated the neural network, speaking to every warrior simultaneously. This is it. This is what we were awakened for. Tomorrow we fight for our species' survival. Rest tonight. Tomorrow we show them what humans can do. Around the world, warriors prepared themselves. They checked weapons, said prayers, wrote messages to loved ones who would never read them. They were afraid, but they were ready. They were humanity's last hope, and they would not fail. The Kalith reinforcement fleet moved through space like a dark cloud. 300 warships arranged in perfect formation. On the flagship, Grand Admiral Corvesh reviewed the reports from Earth with cold eyes. He had conquered 40 worlds in his career. Earth would be number 41. These humans are more troublesome than expected, his tactical officer reported, but they have less than 50 ships. Victory is certain, Corvesh nodded. The numbers were overwhelming. Even if every human ship fought perfectly, they would still lose. It was simple mathematics. But something about the situation bothered him. Humans were known for their unpredictability. Stay alert, Corvesh ordered. Don't underestimate them. In Earth's orbit, Paul Bennett stood on the bridge of the Freedom's Dawn. Around his ship, 46 more human vessels took up positions. They were outnumbered more than 6 to 1, but they had advantages the enemy didn't know about. Surprise, determination, and nothing left to lose. All ships, this is Fleet Commander Bennett. Paul broadcast. Remember your training. Don't engage in direct combat. We use hit-and-run tactics. We use Earth's gravity well, the moon, the orbital debris. We make them chase us, and we make them pay for every meter. Victoria commanded the surface fleet, ready to provide support from the oceans. Her carriers could launch fighters and provide anti-ship missiles if the enemy came too close to Earth. On the ground, Adam organized the defense of key facilities. If the orbital battle went badly, the Kalith would land ground forces. The warriors would make them regret it. The enemy fleet entered Earth's solar system and began their approach. They moved confidently, their formation tight and professional. Corvesh expected an easy victory. He was about to learn differently. Paul waited until the enemy was fully committed, then gave the order. All ships scatter and engage. The human fleet broke apart like a school of fish, each ship darting in a different direction. The Kalith formation tried to respond but found themselves confused. The human ships were fast and agile, using the gravity of Earth and Moon to slingshot around, striking from unexpected angles. Jack piloted a small strike craft loaded with a captured Kalith antimatter warhead. It was a suicide mission, but he had volunteered. He weaved through the enemy fleet, dodging weapons fire with skill that made him seem superhuman. His neural interface let him predict enemy movements almost before they happened. He locked onto Corvesh's flagship and accelerated. The enemy tried desperately to shoot him down, but he was too fast, too skilled. At the last second, Jack armed the warhead and ejected from his craft. The explosion tore through the flagship's shields, crippling its main weapons. A human recovery ship snatched Jack from space, seconds before he would have died from lack of oxygen. His nanites had kept him alive in the vacuum just long enough. He was unconscious but breathing. The battle raged for hours. Human ships would strike and vanish, using the terrain of space itself as cover. They targeted enemy engines and weapons, not trying to destroy ships but to disable them. Every crippled Kalith vessel became an obstacle for the others. Derek, working from Earth's surface, hacked into the Kalith communication network and broadcast a message. It was footage of Vexthor's worst atrocities, his execution of his own officers, his orders to massacre civilians. Derek made sure every Kalith soldier and officer saw it. On the Kalith ship Talrix commanded, the crew watched the broadcast in horror. They had known their high commander was cruel, but this was beyond anything they had imagined. Talrix made a decision that would change everything. "Attention all Kalith forces," Talrix broadcast on an open channel. "I am Subcommander Talrix and I am ordering a ceasefire. What we have done here is wrong. These humans fight to protect their home. We are the invaders. I will not participate in genocide any longer." 20 ships under Talrix's command broke formation and stopped firing. Other ships, inspired by his courage, followed suit. Within minutes, nearly 50 Kalith vessels had defected or gone neutral. The enemy fleet fell into chaos as officers argued and ship captains questioned their orders. Corvesh watched his perfect formation collapse into disorder and felt rage consume him. He ordered his loyal ships to fire on the defectors, turning the battle into a three-way fight. Kalith fired on Kalith while humans continued their hit-and-run attacks. Adam received reports of the chaos and saw an opportunity. "All ground forces prepare for assault. We're boarding enemy ships." Small craft launched from Earth's surface carrying teams of warriors. They targeted crippled Kalith vessels, breaching hulls and fighting through corridors. The close-quarters combat favored the humans, whose enhanced strength and speed made them deadly. Adam led a team onto Corvesh's flagship. They fought through corridors filled with enemy soldiers, their weapons and skills overwhelming the surprised defenders. Adam's team reached the bridge just as Corvesh was trying to activate the ship's self-destruct. "Stop him!" Adam shouted. Lisa, moving faster than the eye could follow, closed the distance and knocked the Grand Admiral away from the controls. Corvesh drew a blade and attacked, his alien strength formidable, but Lisa was enhanced by 8 centuries of nanotechnology evolution. She fought him blade to blade, her movements precise and deadly. The duel lasted less than a minute. Lisa's blade found Corvesh's heart and the Grand Admiral fell. His death was broadcast across the Kalith fleet, and the remaining loyal ships began to break apart. Some tried to flee only to be cut down by Paul's fleet. Others surrendered, their will to fight broken. On Vexthor's command ship, the High Commander realized everything was lost. In his arrogance, he tried to activate the ship's self-destruct to take Earth with him. Derek, still hacking from the surface, detected the activation and overrode it remotely. "Not today," Derek muttered, rerouting the self-destruct to trigger in the ship's escape pod bay. The explosion disabled the pods but left the ship intact. Human warriors boarded Vexthor's ship and found him on the bridge, raging and screaming denials. They took him prisoner, his threats meaning nothing now. The battle was over. Of the 300 Kalith ships, nearly 100 were destroyed. 80 had defected or surrendered, and the rest had fled into deep space. The human fleet had lost 19 ships, but they had won. On Earth's surface, people emerged from hiding and looked up at the sky. The alien ships were retreating or surrendering. For the first time in 30 years, Earth's sky was clear of enemies. Adam stood in the ruins of New York City, watching the sunrise. Beside him, Lisa, Derek, Rachel, Jack, and the other warriors gathered. They were exhausted, wounded, but alive. "We did it," Lisa said softly. "We survived," Adam corrected. "Now we rebuild." Talrix's ship landed near the human command center. The Kalith officer emerged, his weapons abandoned, his hands raised in peace. Adam met him, studying the alien carefully. "My people have done terrible things," Talrix said. "I cannot undo them. But I can help you rebuild. Some of us want peace." Adam thought about refusing, about sending all the aliens away. But he thought about what Sentinel had told them. The galaxy was a dangerous place. Humanity would need allies. "Peace," Adam said finally. "But on our terms. Earth belongs to humans. Anyone who can accept that is welcome to stay and help." 10 years passed. Earth transformed from a graveyard into a fortress. The awakened warriors integrated with the surviving population. Their nanite technology shared with those who wanted it. New volunteers entered cryogenic sleep, becoming the next generation of sleeping warriors. The cities rebuilt themselves, mixing old human architecture with new designs. The Kalith who had chosen peace became allies, teaching humans about the galaxy while learning about human culture. Paul commanded a new human fleet, Patrolling the solar system and protecting Earth's interests, Victoria led the naval forces, ensuring the oceans were secure. Derek became humanity's chief intelligence officer, building networks across the galaxy. Lisa and Rachel trained new warriors, teaching them the skills and values that had saved humanity. Jack designed new ships and weapons, ensuring humans would never be helpless again. Adam became Earth's ambassador to the galaxy. Alien species who had once ignored humanity now listened when he spoke. They had learned what the Kalith learned too late. Humans didn't start wars, but they would always finish them. In a memorial park built in the ruins of New York, a wall of names honored the fallen. Marcus Blake, Sophie Miller, Kyle Harris, Helen Porter, Nathan Gray, and thousands of others who had fought and died in humanity's darkest hour. At the bottom of the memorial, a single line was carved in stone. They fought so we could sleep. We slept so they could rise again. Children played in the park, growing up in a world that knew peace but remembered war. Above them, new defense stations watched the stars, ready for any threat. The sleeping warriors had risen when the final human fell. Now they stood watch, ensuring that humanity would never fall again. Earth's long night was over. The dawn had come at last,